All right, we're back with more Spoken Sounds of Soul and Miss Ashley Smith. Thank you.
Test. Could I get just a little bit of volume in the mic?
A little bit of volume.
Just a touch.
Just a little. Just a touch. Yeah. Just a pinch.
Just a little spurt.
Test. 1 2 1 2. Test. 1 2 1 2. Test 1 2. Is this the one that hums a lot? It's probably why we keep it like lower voice. It's cool. I can project. Say it to chest.
All right, Ashley. Well, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for coming. And it's going to be great here today. And we have a lot to talk about and discuss. But before we get into everything else, what you got?
There you go.
Okay. Yes, my name is Ashley Smith. I'm from California, but I was raised. I live in Atlanta now. I love it. It's my home now. I'm a writer. I'm a blogger. I started my blog, Overcoming Schizophrenia, back in 2008. I've been blogging ever since. You can check me out online still at Overcoming Schizophrenia. Just Google that, Overcoming Schizophrenia, Ashley Smith, and you'll see me. Some things about me: I'm a mother. I'm an advocate for mental health recovery. I'm a NAMI mentor, a NAMI member, a NAMI trainer, former board member. I'm a lot of things. But right now, I really just want to get my story out so that people know the truth about mental health and recovery. Schizophrenia is no joke, but schizophrenia can be manageable, and this is my story.
All right.
So speaking of story, because I was reading the back, I just wanted to go ahead and read this. I'm reading the summary off the back of her book, What's on My Mind, a collection of blog entries from Overcoming Schizophrenia, Volume 1, by Ashley Smith. Right. So right here on the back it says, after stealing a military pickup truck to escape the demons and going on a high-speed chase with police, Ashley Smith was institutionalized and diagnosed with schizophrenia. However, life after that took a huge turn for the better. Instead of continuing to be a victim to her illness, Ashley chooses recovery and shares her experience on her personal blog. In her blog, Overcoming Schizophrenia, she dares to reminisce about the distressing experiences of having a false perception of reality, and then her process of embracing the condition by exploring interviews about her recovery to help others and to reduce stigma. And that's just the main blurb part there. But I think it's really just an inspirational story overall. Because schizophrenia is like really real. I mean, when you think back in time, I don't even think it's been a whole, even 100 years that we really started recognizing, mental illness as like, diagnosable and treatable conditions. It used to be, just right off and you throw them in a dark room somewhere. So I definitely think it's a bright story, and we appreciate having you on and, writing your book. I haven't been able to take a look at your blog. I'd like to. But like I said, even just from the summary of the book, I can't wait to hear more.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, there's a lot to share, a lot to talk about. And that, you're right. Schizophrenia is a lot going on. There's a lot going on then. There's a lot going on now. But the times is changing. There's recovery movement out there. When I say recovery movement, there's more people coming out talking about the diagnosis. There's more people sharing their lived experience. More people talking about how it can be managed, how they're coping with it. And I'm just one of the many out there. Just want to share my story so that everyone knows. Yes, schizophrenia is a lifelong condition, but it's also very manageable.
Okay. Now, at what point, because people think schizophrenia or someone that has a mental issue is someone in a straitjacket and just, they don't look like us. They don't, talk like us. And, they're just some crazy person that's doing, off the wall things, which we all have our moments because I can get real crazy. You know what I'm saying? But anyway, and I want to check. That's what I want. I'm trying to, But anyway, I'm going to make light of the situation. But just being serious, now you, before mental health came into play and you found out you had an illness, what was your life like?
My life was like everyone else's. It was very typical. I was college age. I was doing my thing in school. I was involved in my church. Mm-hmm. I was a student aide at my school. I was working part-time at the mall. I was doing a lot of big things. I was on the cross-country team. And it's unfortunate that mental illness generally hits people in early adulthood, but that doesn't exclude the younger individuals or the older individuals. So everyone is still at risk with a lot of different factors. I learned about my diagnosis when I was 20 years old through a legal incident that got me in jail, almost in prison. But I'm just so thankful that I went through the ups and downs. I came out on top. I'm thankful for my many blessings. I'm thankful that my diagnosis was known then to me and my family, so I can do something about it.
Right.
Yes. Knowing is the first step.
That's right. Knowing. Okay. So take us to that moment when you first was diagnosed, or the incident that occurred.
And were you in denial?
Yes. I don't know. It was so real. I don't consider it denial. I just consider it, that was all the symptoms that was going on in my mind. It was a lot going on. I rationalized these symptoms. When I talk about the symptoms, I'm talking about the voices, the thought that I can read people's minds, see spirits and stuff like that. It's very bizarre, but this was very much real to me. I validated that by my faith that anything is possible. I still believe anything is possible, but I just took it to another level with my untreated diagnosis. I didn't learn about my diagnosis until I was jailed and eventually hospitalized. What happened was the symptoms were messing me up. I couldn't focus. I couldn't think straight. I was confused. I had short-term memory concerns. I was hearing voices. I thought that everyone was against me, including my family members. And so I tried to get out. I tried to escape everybody. I just tried to protect myself. I wanted to live. I wanted to do what everyone else does. I just want everything to be back to normal. But I was starting to lose my relationships with friends and family members. And usually I don't have a lot of disagreements or fallouts with family and friends. But I think that's another sign or warning sign of mental health is when people start losing those key relationships. I remember when I was getting ready like every other day, and then all of a sudden I felt like the world was against me. I was outnumbered. I couldn't manage. I couldn't do what I needed to do. I just needed to escape, literally. I learned about my condition through an arrest. I had wandered about in a daze, disoriented, hearing voices, seeing things, having these bizarre thoughts that everyone was against me. It was really real. It was really discouraging. It was really degrading and demeaning to me what the voices were saying. I remember one voice in particular was like, "You're dishonest to your family," and that was really hurtful to me. But the incident that led to my arrest was taking a truck from the airport going to high school chasing. Well, this wasn't no ordinary truck. This was a big rugged pickup truck. It belonged to the military, and that meant I was going to do some time. It was a felony. But fortunately, with my diagnosis, fortunately with my friends and family, my church family, character reference letters, I was able to, my family, my attorney was able to prove to the judge, hey, this is a fluke, this is mental illness. This is not the Ashley that we know. And this is a byproduct of a condition that was temporary because treatment in schizophrenia is manageable. Yeah.
I have a question for her.
Yes. Okay, go ahead, Doris.
Thank you.
I think you can put it right on that.
Thank you. Yes, I'm listening.
Okay, so when it comes to paranoid schizophrenia, first of all, mental health to me, I see it from different points of views, and a lot of people do because I'm a very spiritually in tune person. And I want to say that when I was a child, the same symptoms that you say that you have, I had those same symptoms, but I'm not paranoid schizophrenia. A lot of times it's very spiritual, and and until you actually have somebody to cultivate and get you to understand that there's a gift involved in all of the things that's going on with you. A lot of times we allow for people to label us, not understanding that it's very, very spiritual a lot of times when you can see things that other people can't see, and when you hear things that other people can't hear, and there's warning signs and having dreams, and then they come to pass. I mean, when I was a little girl, that was happening to me, and I thought I was crazy. But over time, I learned that it was a gift, and there was a gift of caution around me to teach me to be careful and also to warn other people. Yes. So my question for you, I tell people all the time, if I would have allowed them to label me, I probably will be sitting somewhere in a mental institution rocking up into this day, because they would have started coding my gift with drugs and meds and all of that kind of stuff. And then I would have never known that it was a gift because of the mindset once you're put on all these medicines and stuff like that. So my question to you, since you were 20 years old when you got this diagnosis, because my grandfather was labeled as paranoid schizophrenic, but he had an alcohol problem, and he ended up killing my grandmother and then killing himself. And one of the things that I want to ask you is, if you were labeled at 20, all of the years before 20, did you have any signs of paranoid schizophrenia?
Well, first of all, I'm very sorry to hear about your loss. And
it was before I was even born.
That's happened to your family member as a byproduct of not being treated. Just when things go untreated, it's a whole lot of things, a whole lot of issues come down upon us. But before I was 20, there were some symptoms. I didn't identify those symptoms. I didn't know what they were. I didn't know what the warning signs were. I didn't know a lot of things. I thought that I was just me, Ashley. Mm-hmm. I didn't know that I was going through some symptoms that other people would identify as a significant problem or a mental health condition that needs to be hospitalized or something like that. I think my first warning signs was when I thought that I God given talents to do these extraordinary things that were just not possible, but it was very much possible to me. And so I rationalized that.
Okay. And so with that being said, at 20 you were diagnosed, right?
Yes.
once you were diagnosed, you accepted the diagnosis, you know, what they said, right?
Oh, it was harsh, yeah. I mean, I couldn't help but accept that. I don't think I really went into a denial phase. I think I went through a hard time taking medication because I was on medication before. That was the hardest part. Mm-hmm. But for me, being in jail, I had to rationalize this wasn't something ain't right here. This wasn't me. You know, this wasn't something that explained how I got there. And so when they told me about my diagnosis and they started telling me about the symptoms, and you know, I had a lot of support from my family, especially my mother and stuff like that. I think that's what really helped me. And also an enthusiastic doctor. He's like, hey, you don't belong here.
What was going on in your life before you started taking that turn for the worse? Because, I mean, I'm going somewhere with this. I'm sorry. I know, but I really need to know this.
Yeah.
Because you know.
That's what I was trying to basically ask her is what brought to this point.
Exactly.
Ashley was raised mother, father, good family, good upbringing. She was in college.
It seemed like everything would be going swell. But
it's
weird, the power of perception, because you never really understand like a life outside of your own. Like, you never understand what it's like on the other, like behind somebody else's pair of eyes.
Right.
You know?
And she had this perfect life. And that's what I was trying to get before this came into what came about.
Were you going through an identity crisis? I mean, were you trying to find yourself?
No, I was actually on the dean's list. I was doing well. I was sharp. Yes. I was supposed to graduate from school. I was supposed to get my master's. I was really much motivated to stay focused and to get education, do all those wonderful things. But my grades, after I made the dean's list my freshman year, my grades started slipping. They went lower and lower. I didn't know what was going on. Stress is a major trigger for almost everything. Stress is a major trigger for a bad day. I mean, stress really.
There's heart conditions.
I think that a combination of things is what led to that day where I couldn't manage any longer. I think it was the relocation. I relocated from Atlanta.
Now we're getting somewhere. Keep on going.
It's good stress, but it's still stress. Relocating, moving. I mean, that loss of self-esteem by thinking I was a failure because I just couldn't manage my schooling and my education, stuff like that.
Was this before or after the diagnosis?
This is before the diagnosis. This is before the incident that led to the arrest and the hospitalization. And then these falls with my friends and family. It was just a lot of things. But I think stress played a significant role. But I think that also how I was living kind of kept it at bay. I was very athletic. I was involved in church. I was involved in school. I was working, and so I kind of kept it at bay. But again,
so you're doing all of those things. When did you have time for Ashley? Because I heard that you said that you done a lot of stuff.
Yes.
And I'm going somewhere with this because I mean I'm not going against your diagnosis or anything like that. But like I said, I'm a very spiritually in tune person, and because I've experienced these things from a young age. And I have to ask these questions because I do believe that there are some people that have mental health issues. And then I believe that there's some people that are extremely gifted spiritually that people misread them and don't understand them. So they hurry up and diagnose them.
Yes. Yeah. And so going forward after the incarceration, what was your life like? How did that go when you were diagnosed and you realized? Because I know growing up for myself, my mother, and we talked about this, was diagnosed and she was labeled. But she was also what Dr. Angela's talking about, a spiritual person. And when she said things, people would be like, okay, that's crazy. And you try to put, like you could do all these things. My mom will pray for you and touch you. And most people would be like, and she's crazy, it's all outdoors or whatever. And it was embarrassing for me. So to go through that or whatever, I was embarrassed of my mom. So were you embarrassed? What was your life like? And having to cope with being diagnosed with?
I think I got through the worst part when I was actually incarcerated because I became catatonic. And catatonic to me was when I wasn't moving or responding or talking or doing anything. I literally sat in my chair for long periods of time. I was like the person in the movie that, oh, something's wrong with them, let's leave them alone. I wasn't doing well at all. I was my mind was falling. I was deteriorating. It was slow but fast. It seemed like one day I was Ash, next day I was in jail. It literally seemed that kind of fast. But I know if there was always a warning sign or something before the fall, but I didn't see that.
Right.
I didn't see that.
It was there, but it just hit you all at one time. And that's what they call it, like a nervous breakdown.
Yeah,
Exactly, or an anxiety attack.
Yeah.
And then when you don't identify with what's going on, then everything else continues to happen, and then it's downhill from there. And then they diagnose you and all of this stuff. So then what happened after? What brought you to the point of realizing that this diagnosis that they gave you is not who you're going to allow for them to label you as?
Yes. I think it goes back to a lot of things. I got a lot of support. I had support from my treatment team, my doctor, my family. I mean, just because I had this diagnosis doesn't mean I wasn't Ashley anymore. It just means that I had some more work to do to maintain wellness and stuff like that. But it was scary. It was very harsh having that diagnosis. It's just like everything I thought about schizophrenia, I'm like, that's not me. I'm still.
I have a question.
That's not me.
Did your family treat you like you're handicapped? Did they try to like enable you? You know what I mean? Like, did they treat you differently? Or did they try to like make excuses for a lot of things that you've done in your past? Like, how was it post finding out what happened?
I think
or finding out your diagnosis?
I don't think that anyone is prepared for any kind of serious medical condition such as mental illness or anything else. And so I don't think anyone really knew what to do, but I mean, thank God for new technology. They get online. My mom's like, okay, you need to get some books on this. They didn't treat me like I was handicapped, but I think it was kind of like hush hush. Only the family knew that I was in the hospital, you know. And it's unfortunate that mental illness is not treated like a medical condition. I know my friend King is like, well, when people go to the hospital, you generally get them flowers, you know, tell everybody so they can get a prayer or something. And then when you go to a mental health institution or a mental health hospital, it's not that widespread. And so I love my family. I appreciate it. I'm so glad that we overcame some of those stigmatizing things. But I'm very fortunate that my family hung in there and learned with me what we can do to manage this together.
I want to talk about the incident that just recently occurred, and I'm sure some of you heard it on the news, where the family thought by calling the police would help the woman who had the knife. So they called the police and she was shot to death. So they just, and the first thing the family said was, we just wanted to get her help. Well, we need to be educated so that they could have better responded to this woman without having to take her life. And a lot of people have been killed in situations where there were mental illnesses that played a significant role.
But even in that situation, because it was a knife, the police could have tased
shot her in the foot.
No, they could have tased her. So there's not that it has nothing to do with her mental illness.
Exactly. That's true. But what I'm saying, because the police were involved in whatever they had going on, people have lost their lives. That's the point that I'm trying to make. People have lost their lives because people weren't educated, whether it be law enforcement or whoever on this. These people
on the large street.
Yeah.
Well, keeping it real, everybody has mental health issues, one way or the other. Yeah. One way or the other. There's always a time in your life that you go through things. And when you go through things, sometimes they're not the things that you're used to going through. So you don't know how to deal with them. Just like prison, the jail part. I did 3 years day for day. And when I first was incarcerated, and I went to jail for something that I didn't do. And had to do 3 years on a 17-year sentence and fought my own case from jail. And then I was released after 3 years. But what I realized is at the time that I was in there, it was time that I had to focus on me because of all of the things that was in my past. I never healed from them. And that's what I'm getting to with you. I want to ask you some, just like 2 questions. I know that everybody paints a picture just because you were growing up in the house with a mother and a father, and they paint that as a perfect picture. But there's a lot of families like that are very dysfunctional, even more so than people with single parents. I mean, I'm not saying that all of them are, because there's a lot of underlying stuff that go on in a marriage, in a conglomerate family than a single family, because domestic violence don't come from a single person. It comes from, a person with two. So there's things that go on inside these families that are hidden, molestation, all of that kind of stuff. So my question for you, Ashley, is when you were a child, was there anything that you went through in your life? And I'm saying things that you have not, because I'm looking at you and I already know the answer before you even tell me. But is there anything that you went through in your life that you buried so far down in you that you put, because I heard you say, oh, I went to college, I was on the dean's list, I was doing this, I was doing that, and I was doing, so everything was, Ashley was doing it, But is there anything from when you was a child that you buried and you pushed yourself to do things to not deal with those issues?
I think that I was very fortunate. I came from a two-parent household. My mother and my stepfather, from the age of 7, my stepfather was in my life, and I was very fortunate. But how my parents divorced when I was very young. My father was with his wife since I was like 5. So I come from a solid foundation in both places.
That's a good thing.
But I wouldn't say that my family was perfect. It's just like every other family. There's always something that could have been better. But I did not go through a traumatic experience to say that contributed to my mental health diagnosis. And so when I was being evaluated and assessed for mental illness, they asked me a series of questions: sexual abuse, emotional abuse. They just asked me the same questions several different times. They're asking about my education. They're asking anything traumatic, and I don't have that as part of my experience.
That's good.
I don't have schizophrenia really in my family, unless maybe it wasn't labeled. I mean, depression runs rampant in my family. Alcohol to a certain extent as well. But I don't know what to attribute it to.
Were you ever depressed?
Yes, I have experienced depression. I have.
At what age?
That wasn't. It may be puppy love, but it was over my high school sweetheart. But I'm not. I didn't have anything that was
between depression
traumatic.
and
Yeah, but that's not my primary diagnosis. The schizophrenia trumps it all, and I'm very fortunate that we caught it when we did. I mean, that arrest, the hospitalization was an eye opener.
I have a question too.
Yes.
Okay, so like you, I've been incarcerated. I've done 3 years also. And I want to ask, where do you draw the line? This is an opinionated question. When somebody tries to use their mental health as an excuse for the bad choices that they make. Because after sitting down for 3 years, like, I hear all type of different stories. Like, it was this, it was that, it was because of this, it was because of that. So just your own opinion. Like, where do you draw a line with that?
I think it goes back to general terms. There are good people and there are bad people. There are good people with diagnosis and there are bad people with diagnosis. There are people that try to get over, others that don't. I really, I don't like that scapegoat. Oh, I did it because of my diagnosis or something like that. Because for me, it does play a contributing factor, because I think when people are stressed out, when they're under different circumstances or conditions in their mind, it can be unpredictable. It can be legitimately insanity for whatever reason, whatever they're doing. But at the end of the day,
and it can be at that period of time too.
Yes.
It doesn't have to be a permanent diagnosis.
Right. And I was big on, and I'm speaking from me. I'm talking about me. I was big on making excuses. And it was their fault because they upset me, and I wouldn't do this because I never wanted to take ownership for my actions, my choices, and what I did, what it played. And every action has a reaction.
And see, it's Mental Health Awareness Month. So one of the things that I want to put out there is this. Mental illness is nothing to play with.
Yes.
Mental health is different than mental illness. It's just like when you're stressed out, your blood pressure can go up, right? But when you're at a normal level, you may not never have high blood pressure. It's the same thing with mental health and mental illness. Mental health is a temporary thing. but everybody has mental health because everybody has a mind. Everybody go through stuff because everybody has a brain to think, and your brain starts feeling, with your emotions, and then it becomes an emotional situation. So I believe this is my thoughts on it, and that mental health is a temporary life situation, when mental illness is somebody that actually has a disease.
Yes.
But they don't even separate the two. They always try to combine them together, and they always label everyone with the same thing, whether it's mental health or mental illness, without really doing the true research of what a person's life has consisted of, So for you, now you take meds and stuff like that,
Yes.
and what does the medication do for you?
Yes. I take an antipsychotic for my schizophrenia, antidepressant for my depression, a mood stabilizer for my bipolar and manic experiences, as well as anxiety medication on a need basis. So I take 3 pills a day. It helps me when I'm on all my medications, and when I take consistently as prescribed. I'm a sharper. I'm a go-getter. I can do and focus what I can do, but at the same time, I have to be very mindful of my self-care demands and of how stress correlates to my symptoms. And so I force myself to take a break. I'm not trying to work full-time right now because I feel more comfortable working part-time and challenge myself on that level to manage myself and do my job well. And so that's a bit of my self-care, is not pushing myself to the max. But it requires a lot. It's not just medication. Everyone thinks that there's such thing as a pill that fixes everything. No, it's a lot of hard work. I see my therapist regularly. I see my doctor regularly. I'm very fortunate to have a great relationship with my provider for over 8 years now, and he knows me. But yeah, it just coping. I do things. I may not be the best at managing my sleep, but that all plays a contributing factor. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because I had someone. I'm asking you all these questions so that I know how to deal. I had a young lady. I'm definitely not going to put her name out there, but she called me yesterday, and she's also a mental health patient. And before this time, about 3 people ago, I had taken in another person with mental health issues. Actually, I took her out of a facility and brought her into my household to help her. And one thing that I realized is that what our issue is as a people is that we start relying on the excuses. Now, one thing she did say is that her medication keeps her tired all the time. And her mother has an issue with that. And she wants her to basically get out of her house because she's tired of her laying around sleeping all day. But within that, I heard an excuse as to why. You're telling me, if I come with you, then I'll be busy all the time. Well, how is that if your medication makes you sleepy? You see what I'm saying? And those 2 things didn't add up to me. And so for a person that uses excuses for their mental or for them to not be productive when they have the opportunity, that's what the medicine is for, is to try to, is based to maintain you. But when you've been so used to being patted on the back because of that illness, then it becomes excuses and you're never productive to the capacity of what you can. What would you recommend to someone like that?
So we're talking about the side effects of medication. We're talking about excuses and stuff like that. I think it goes back to what if they're not excuses, what if they don't know how to have that conversation with their provider? Because mental health, like any medical condition, it demands a clear understanding, and people get caught up in the medical jargon and don't really know what's going on. So I think it goes back to that relationship with the provider. And a lot of people may not have a relationship with the provider. They may just go in there, they may be a robot. Hey, are you suicidal, homicidal? Here's your pills, you take it, it's done. I've had doctors like that, but I think it goes back to training each other on, or just learning how to manage by having these conversations that no one really wants to talk about, and knowing how to ask the right questions. So instead of saying, what we can say?
Oh, I'll wait till you get to the end.
Instead of saying, you know, I'm tired all the time, it's a side effect of my medication, and maybe they're this, maybe they're that. Maybe the conversation should turn into, how can we articulate this to your doctor? Maybe it just needs to be a dosage adjustment. Maybe it's simple as that, or maybe they need to try a different medication altogether, because it could start up another medical condition. So I think it goes back to a conversation that we all need to have with ourselves and with our treatment team. And our treatment team, not just our doctors, our peers, our family members, our support system, who's also in supporting us, making sure we get what we need.
And that was my next thing, because this particular person, she experienced sexual abuse from her own, you know, sibling at a very young age. And that's what actually, once she decided that she didn't want that lifestyle, because it took her into homosexuality, once she decided that she didn't want that lifestyle anymore, that's when she started dealing with the mental illness stuff. So my question is, how does that, you know, for me, mental illness, you would think, well, people think that mental illness is something that you're born with. But is it safe to say that people can be pushed into mental illness?
I think it goes all kind of ways. I mean, there's no such thing as an easy way out. Life is tough, whether you have mental diagnosis or not. You're going to come across some stressors, whether you're a parent or not, whether you're whatever your profession, you're going to be thrown some challenges.
Yeah.
I think that in her situation, I applaud you for taking her out of that environment and giving her another opportunity to see, hey, if you get the adequate support, maybe she could do better in a different environment. Because sometimes, like you said, the hospital stay could be more triggering than helpful at the end of the day, because we don't know how to talk to each other. We don't know really how to help each other. I think that one of the biggest keys in my wellness is not only the medication, but the support that I have from my family and friends. That's huge.
Absolutely.
And she has a lot of family. She has a lot of friends who support her. Ashley, I'm just meeting her and talking to her and her telling her story. We didn't get into, I was to one of her classes. She also teaches classes, but we're going to find, okay. Tell us some of your successes in dealing with your mental health, taking your medicine and doing all the things that you need to do to get out of that situation. Because some people feel like there's no hope. Oh, I done been to prison. I done did this and this is that. I've been labeled as, crazy person or whatever the case may be. Just tell the people some of the things that you have been blessed to do and to give back to those who may be put in that situation with their shame because of certain situations.
I think I'm very fortunate. I think having this diagnosis, having something as a challenge like this in my life has maybe be more flexible, maybe be more open-minded to different concerns that people are facing and challenged with. I've been very fortunate that writing has been a huge coping tool for me. I keep a journal, I keep a blog. I'm writing another book, my follow-up to What's on My Mind. And so I've been very fortunate to have written a book, What's on My Mind, Overcoming Schizophrenia, that's available on Amazon. I've been very fortunate to be involved in a documentary with Janssen Pharmaceuticals. It's not about medication, it's just an educational film that's about 3 individuals who are living with schizophrenia. I'm one of those 3 stories. Living with schizophrenia, called Hope Recovery. You can see it, a clip of it on YouTube. But another success of mine is just being here today, being able to work. That's a success of mine. Because at one point I wasn't always able to work. At one point I wasn't able to live by myself. At one point I wasn't able to do what I need to do. But I'm thankful to my treatment team, my peers, my NAMI family. I'm thankful to my higher power, of course, because I feel like I've come a long way. There's much more to be done, but I made it. I made it. This is my first decade in recovery. I was diagnosed at age of 20 back in 2007. It's going into 2018. It's been 11 years, and so I'm thankful. Some people, that's not it. Sometimes it's not an excuse, and that's a very valid point when we say, "Hey, I can't do X, Y, Z because of my medication. I can't do X, Y, Z because of my anxiety." And so sometimes it's not an excuse. And so I really applaud those of us that are trying our best with what we have. especially when we don't have the resources to get what we need to get. A lot of people don't have health insurance. A lot of people don't know what to do if they're on medication. You know, and I'm very fortunate to be a part of NAMI, the National Center for Illness, because I've grown so much in that organization of my own recovery and also helping other people and families and stuff like that.
Can I say something? I know you said that this month is the recovery and the awareness. And then I'm also going to piggyback off of something that you said. There's a difference between mental health and mental illness. Well, now you have a lot of these athletes that are using their platform and are speaking out. Like there's guard, DeMar DeRozan. He plays for the Toronto Raptors. And then Kevin Love, who plays for the Cleveland Cavaliers. These guys are speaking out about their mental illness. And you can just tell that it doesn't discriminate. It doesn't matter if you're old, young, white, black, rich, poor, because everybody's looking at these professional athletes and they're like,
Carey too.
yeah, that was the next one. Yeah. And she came out and said that she's, diagnosed with bipolar. So anyway, it's just like you have all of these athletes that are coming out and, they're using their platforms to bring awareness. So I just admire your courage and just keep doing what you're doing.
Yes.
Man, if I may, sorry, I just a pet peeve of mine to cut people off, so I like to just wait patiently. So hold on, I gotta mentally backtrack through all the piggybacks. So I get piggyback. So
ABC.
I do agree, like that mental health, mental illness difference, because I think it's just like the same thing between like regular medical health and medical illness. Because medical health is like on a spectrum, right? And once you fall past a certain degree in the negative direction, once you've had so many experiences or certain, self practices such as not getting enough sleep, because I know I got that bad. Exercising bad mental health in the same way can result in bad, mental illness once it's gotten, down to such a negative point. When you go through sad stuff, your girl break up with you, you hurt, your dog die, you hurt, whatever the case may be, you lose your job, your bills ain't getting paid, and these things can cumulatively wear down on your mental health until you develop some form of mental illness. But in the same way that you can get sick and then get well, you can develop some mental illness and then, through, mental health practices, recover that mental health and move back into a healthy place. So then my question to you, and I got another one after this, so don't jump too fast. My question now to you is, if there's someone in a state of bad mental health, right? Say it's not necessarily to the point of illness, but someone who's just not mentally in a good space, what practices might you recommend? Also, I got a good song for us to play during the break. What practices might you recommend to improve mental health? Like, you know how they say eat healthy, drink water, go for a jog, exercise and stuff, or like good physical health things. What do you think are good mental health activities?
I think to exercise good mental health is to not hold it all in. Talk to someone that someone trusts. I think adequate sleep, having some type of outlet, whether that be a hobby or some type of activity. It could be writing, it could be rapping, it could be anything. It could be taking pictures. Just having that personal outlet to release that tension and that negativity or even just those thoughts. So I think all those things combined, I think it's not just about coping skills, but a lot of it is self-care that a lot of people seem to ignore for their family. They think that they're sacrificing their self-care to provide for their family, when at the end of the day, you can't sacrifice your own self-care needs because then you won't be there. So, there's a lot of excuses why we don't manage our self-care. So self-care is number one. And hand in hand with self-care is self-love, just doing everything that's necessary. It's not just about our diet, not just about our eating, not just about talking. It's about you. Don't lose you and get caught up in all these things with your job, with your relationships. Go back to you and what's spiritually healthy for you and things of that nature.
Okay. So now the next part. What do you think, because in the same way, like you were saying, people who, cop out on their mental issues for, their behaviors. It's like the same people who like pick a sign and just be like, sorry, I'm just an asshole because I'm a Taurus or something. And it's just like, no, it's a character flaw. Fix it. Like, you're just gonna just say you're some way because some stars cosmically aligned on your birthday. And I think what people do is like they take that, somebody says, oh, you were born between this day and this day. You're an insert word here, and they have insert characteristics here. And then they take that upon themselves and they say that is them, and then it somehow justifies or validates whatever it is they do, be it good or bad, right? How important do you think it is, not only in identifying and diagnosing mental illness, because I could imagine, like, before it was diagnosed, and I'm just probably this way for a lot of people, before you get diagnosed for, some way that you are, be it hearing the voices or anything, you've never been outside your own eyes. Like, you've never not been Ashley. And so your entire perception of the world and how people are starts with how you are. And so your perception of who you are and how you are, stemming from your own experience, can only be contradicted by what other people say about you, right? So if you say, yeah, I hear voices and I see spirits, and I just say I don't, then it's like there's this conflict that now identifies, that it puts you on the outside, it identifies you as different, and now you're unsure how to respond to that. How important do you think it is to get that diagnosis so that you see it's not necessarily something that you are, but something that you have, right? Something removed from you, like it just,
I think
just because you're wearing a blue shirt don't make you sad. You know what I'm saying? Kind of thing.
So we're talking about self-stigma. Stigmatizing ourselves.
Yeah, because you don't know that you have something that you can treat and get rid of and separate from yourself. You just feel like this is just who you are, how you are.
I think the self-stigma piece is very intricate to recovery and not dealing with that. Not necessarily not accepting that, but just seeing all the negativity that comes with the label and the diagnosis. People get stuck in that, and it's very unfortunate, very sad, because it's so much weight. There's always a lot of weight in everyone's lives from something, from their work, from their school. There's always a lot of weight. But at the end of the day, I think what can help us remind ourselves not to self-stigmatize is that this is a medical condition that can be manageable. And then there's a lot of people that may not have access to health insurance. There are places where you can go for a sliding scale to get treatment. There are there's a plethora of information. And I want to go back to something that we discussed earlier about the law enforcement. There's actually a training called CIT, which is Crisis Intervention Training for law enforcement. And NAMI was over this program, CIT, that was educating law enforcement and 911 operators and other first-hand responders about how to de-escalate situations with people with mental health crises, not just mental illness, but substance abuse too. And so now a lot, it's a big secret, it seems like. Now, if someone in Georgia was going through a crisis that was mental health related, be it mental illness or substance abuse, they can actually request a CIT officer. And so that's going across the state, and I don't know how mandatory it is or not, but I've been very fortunate to participate in this training by sharing my story with law enforcement officers about what it was like for me before and after my diagnosis. And I think that this needs to be mandatory, not just in Georgia, but everywhere where people will listen, because I hate the fact that people are losing their lives, are losing faith in law enforcement because of the lack of understanding of how to manage these crises and things like that. So that's one area of what we can do to empower ourselves and our communities to get the word out that, hey, if you're in a crisis, ask for a CIT officer, someone that's trained to deal with these sorts of issues so it doesn't escalate to a situation that goes out of control and deadly.
And the reality of all of this mental health, mental illness, and all of that, like you said, when you start losing yourself in a label, whether it's mental health or mental illness, or losing yourself in life situations, then it can always be triggered. I was very homicidal at a point in my life. I never was suicidal, thank God, but I wanted to kill everybody that hurted me. And people would label that as mental illness, but it wasn't. It was that I was hurt. I was hurt, and I was tired of people hurting me, and hurt people hurt people. And so if I would have allowed, and it's so crazy because I can tell you, I tried to go and get diagnosed because I thought something was really wrong with me. And all I would ever get is basically, you can tell me what's wrong with me before I can tell you what's wrong with you. You know, you might be opposition defiant, which means that you just hard-headed and want to do what you want to do. You know, that a lot of people don't understand that they have labels that are mental health labels that is not a mental illness.
Yes.
Opposition defiant means that you're just very incorrigible and you're disobedient. You know what I'm saying? And so, but that is a label that they still use for IEPs, but that is not a mental illness. It's a mental health issue because of situations in people's lives, you know? And so my question to you, in being diagnosed with this illness, when you were diagnosed, you said, I heard you saying I was hurt, you know, I didn't know how people was going to look at me, you know, all of these things. Has there come a point in your life from that point of the diagnosis that you actually destroyed that box?
I'm not sure.
I
You
guess
destroyed the
initial
label?
feeling.
Yeah, what I mean is, you know how when the person hurts you, right? That hurt, you hold on to it. When you were labeled, you had to go through things in order to start accepting what you've been labeled for.
Yes.
But before you accepted that, you were hurt by it. You see what I'm saying? Have you destroyed that box of hurt? That's what my question is, because I see something so special in you. And yes, mental health may be the label that they gave. I mean, mental illness may be the label that they gave you. But I also believe that when you destroy your box totally, and I'm talking about all of the stuff that you had to go through in order to come to a conclusion that this is just what it is, you know, and this is something I have to deal with. All of the stuff before that, it bottles up. It's like, you're trapped.
It was very hard. I mean, when we were talking about, you said your perception of the world, this was my reality.
Mhm.
And someone was telling me that my reality wasn't reality.
Right.
And so it was very hurtful, that transition to understand, hey, the medication is not harming or taking away my talents and gifts. The medication is helping me maintain balance. And then having to second guess myself and doubt myself and think back to all those relationships that I no longer had or that were damaged because of my symptoms. I think that was a very hard hit. And going back to self-stigmatizing, I think another key in overcoming self-stigma is seeing examples. I mean, you had mentioned earlier that there's athletes and celebrities coming out saying they have this diagnosis. And that's part of the reason why I wanted to share my story, because there's not a lot of people going out and saying, hey, I had XYZ and I'm doing well, or I'm managing by XYZ. And so I think it's very important that people look at my story and at my book, not just to hear another illness story, but a recovery story. What's my mind overcoming schizophrenia is about coping with mental illness. It's about managing mental illness. It's about being above the diagnosis and still being the Ashley that everyone knew, the Ashley that I was. I'm just a little stronger. I'm a little more challenged.
Again, the hurt that you encountered in that time period, you was going through some stuff right before you were diagnosed. Then you went through a lot of stuff once you were diagnosed, because now it's a conflict with who Ashley is. Yes. My question again to you is, have you dealt with that portion of it, or have you just pushed it away and accepted like this is what it is? Have you dealt with that? And I'm going to say this, the reason why I ask this is because a lot of times when we can be as strong and we can be the voice and we can be everything for everyone else, but we can ignore and miss the things that we need for ourselves in order for us not to have the same relapse that you had when you were labeled with the schizophrenia, if you understand what I'm saying. So my question to you, have you dealt with, did you push it away and say, that's just, it is what it is, this is what I am, or have you dealt with the hurt that came from this, from the diagnosis?
I'm going to answer for Ashley and dealing with Ashley, not because I know, but because I spoke with her, I felt her. And see, we didn't get into her full story. Mm-hmm. Yes, she has released it. She has accepted. She's dealt with it. She's moved on, and she's transitioned to who the woman we see before us today.
I guess now I'm just trying to help everyone else catch up. I'm actually with living with schizophrenia, not schizophrenic.
That's what I was saying. Sorry, I didn't mean to finish you. But like I think the language about it is important, and I noticed it because that's why I just picked at your book because I was like, I noticed she doesn't say Ashley is schizophrenic.
Mm-hmm.
Said Ashley has schizophrenia, right? Mm-hmm. So, and I think it's something that we don't really emphasize in English. In Spanish, it's actually like the difference between S and está is the permanence of the thing. Like one's the current state of the thing, I think is está, but S is the permanent quality of a thing, right? So like if you're cold right now, you'd use the word está, right? But if it was something like just permanent about you, like being a male, you would use S, right? And so I think in English, it's something that we kind of take for granted, you know, it's like, oh, well, somebody has something or somebody is something. They don't think too hard about it. But I think that language is a big part of, like you said, breaking that self-stigma, because once you realize what it is, like when you're hearing voices, all you can really say is, I hear voices, right? When you were, feeling like, what was going on around you, like people were against you, that's just what you were. Like that was an S kind of situation, right? But once you identified that it was, that all these symptoms were packaged within something, a burden that you had to carry, but it still doesn't define you. It's just something that you have. It's like the está, kind of moment of it. I think, linguistically, that separation of labeling someone as what they are versus addressing what they have, because nobody is really ashamed. Like you go to work and just be like, yeah, man, I got a cold today, and even folks with terminal illness, like, yeah, I got cancer, I get, something like that. It's much less stigmatized even within themselves. Like no one just says, oh yeah, I'm cancerous, like I have cancer, right? I have some mental illness as opposed to I am mentally ill. Yes. You know what I'm saying?
I'm glad you brought attention to that because that is deliberate. I've learned over many experiences with peers, my treatment team, and the fact that I stay away from that term schizophrenic. But if you go back to my blog, you'll see that I talk differently about my diagnosis when I first started the blog back in September 2008. They have evolved and changed since that. I used to think that people depended or needed medication to help with everything to get to runs, and that's not true. People are having these diagnoses and still managing without medicine, thankfully through different coping strategies that they've tapped into. And I'm not just talking about talk therapy, I'm talking about music, I'm talking about art, I'm talking about the pets that would signal someone whether before they have a seizure or whatever it is that they're going through. And so there's a lot of creative ways to manage mental health. This is just how I manage it.
Right. And the reason why I asked you this question is because I had a situation in my own personal life, probably not a month ago. And you don't really talk to people about certain things, but a lot of times we think that we're delivered from stuff of our past, because what happens is we push past it. And it's like you ignore this little circle that's right here, and everything back here, you done push that, that way. Now you done push this way, you're helping everybody else and you're doing everything for everybody else. But you don't realize that as soon as something triggers you, then you go backwards in, mentally in your mind, in your emotions and everything. And it actually happened to me like a month ago when somebody did something that really hurt me. It took me back to thinking, and I had to pull myself together, but I had to realize, hey, you thought you was all past that. You thought, no, you need to go destroy this right here, because this is a part that is still hurting you. But because you're the person that is there for everybody else and doing everything for everybody else, a lot of times you ignore the things that hurt you and you cope with it by helping other people. And that's why I asked you that question, because you have to be very careful. And I know with mental health, because I've dealt with it my whole life. I have cousins that they say that it was like hereditary, and the suicide, homicide spirit in my family. And, when I started tapping into spirituality, I started, calling those things out and putting them to cease, but a lot of times you can do that in other people's lives. But when it comes to your own life, you still got that stuff right here.
I knew exactly where you were coming from that, because I know about the box. I know your story. I know what you were saying. She has ripped, just from me talking to her and dealing with her, and it was only for 3 days. 3 days. And I have talked to her maybe once or twice after that, but we haven't talked, but I felt her spirit. And she, like they say, you're free.
Mm-hmm.
And that this is one thing that, and it goes back, and this is to put a Band-Aid on it. I told, what's his name? I said, I'm a recovering addict.
Mm-hmm.
Rerun from Good Times,
Mm-hmm.
was it? He said, don't you ever let me hear you
Mm-hmm.
say that again. And I'm looking at him like, that's what they teach us in group therapy or whatever. And I'm thinking I'm saying something, like I'm proud to say that. He said, he was very upset with me. He
Mm-hmm.
said, once you're free,
You're free.
So I'm free. Yeah. And I thank God for that. So that, and I still got other demons and stuff that I need to deal with. But I can honestly say that I'm free from that demon that held me bound. Mm-hmm. Which caused me so much discord, mm-hmm. or whatever. Like I said, I like to play the blame game on people or whatever, but it was by my choices, all to lose weight. So I got addicted to drugs to lose weight. And that's what it stemmed down to, but it was my choice. But I always wanted to blame it on the friend who introduced it to me. Mm-hmm. So these are things that I had to get, and this is what she's saying. It was always somebody else's fault. Even in my book, I talk about how for years I blamed the girl, but it wasn't her fault, it was mine. Because I made the choice to say, ooh, let me try it.
And I even say the same thing with my oldest daughter, because I was raped at the age of 15. And if I would have did what my mother told me to do when I'm away from home, then I wouldn't have put myself in that situation, and I was drinking alcohol. Knowing that my mother didn't approve of that, that's not what she taught me, and I went somewhere else and did exactly what she taught me not to do. And so even though the person, they were wrong for doing what they were doing, I had to find my wrong and putting myself in a position for that to happen to me out of being disobedient.
Mm-hmm.
You said
I heard two things. I heard like training our minds, or training us to feel or operate in a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
I think that it's time this recovery movement is strong, this recovery movement is growing, where people with a diagnosis are stepping up and saying, hey, I have a diagnosis, but I'm managing, I'm successful, I'm still overcoming the odds and this and the other. I think it's very important that we learn that you could be whatever you want to be. Don't let the diagnosis scare you or deter you from doing what you need to do.
I know this is about mental illness and everything, but you can relate that to like people that are
everything.
Yes,
because
it's a medical condition. It's another challenge.
Yeah. So people label felons like they're not going to be successful.
I did drug. Okay, we're going to talk about drug use. People labeled me, oh, she ain't nothing but a drug addict and all of this, and I was scared. I was nothing. I held bound up before drugs came into my life. There was nothing. I was like you, raised in a good family, good home, church, only girls, spoiled, rotten. Okay, which probably was don't spoil your kids, okay? But I was very, and then at some point in my life, I got out. Everybody knew me as Terry, who won a car, Leslie could deal. I modeled. I did this, I did that. And then I made the choice to do drugs, and that was the scum of the earth. I was the scum of the earth. And I'm gonna say,
and you felt crazy, right?
I felt crazy. I felt bound. I felt like everybody was against me, even though I wasn't using.
Which is
but I
health.
Stayed until, and this is what was so important that Dr. Angela said, you let free. So what? I did drugs. That does not define my future. That's not who I am. That's what I did. So you cannot have people, oh, she's this, she's that, or whatever. No, that was a choice I made. That's not who I am. That's right. And I had to get that in my spirit. Until I got that, I was always going to be held by that. And I always went back. I always relapsed. I always did these things, crazy stuff. Yeah, I did crazy stuff while I was high. I did all these things, but it's not for us to judge people, but encourage people. So things like what you're doing. All of us are in here encouraging people and admitting, hey, we have a problem. We did this. Now we're doing.
Let's take it up a notch. that's the reason why at the Black I Am Awards, I'm honoring two people it's going to be controversial, right? Cat Williams and Monique. Why? Because Cat Williams, no matter what you see him doing in the on the news and stuff, what Cat Williams, his comedy originally, when Cat Williams came out, he educated us as Black people. He talked about our issues and our problems and all of these things. We have to start bringing back relevancy to people that are leaders. Instead of writing them off, instead of dogging them and putting them down, we need to hold them accountable and bring them back to the forefront of understanding that you are a leader. That's even in mental health and anything that you go through. It all ties into the same thing. When, with the Black I Am Awards, it's actually giving honor to people that have paved the way in one way or the other, regardless of the decisions they may have made before or after. Because we have to bring the relevancy back to our people of the power that they are, of who they are, versus situations that they've been in. And that's exactly what you said, even with mental health, that you have to bring, when you're diagnosed, you can't lose yourself in that diagnosis. You have to still be Ashley with a diagnosis so that you can overcome the diagnosis and the stigma of everything that goes on with it. So I also want to commend you because it's very important. I had a cousin that, he ended up in the mental hospital. I'm talking about, was a preacher. He went to the military, came back a little, weird. But come to find out, there was different things that he had done in his childhood, and he was introduced to pornography at a very young age and was actually battling that demon of pornography to the point that he was actually touching a kid, one of mine, and I had to get to the point of understanding that a lot of things that people do, you have to go back into. That's why I asked you all the questions about your childhood, because if you didn't go through the things that I said, then that's a diagnosis of something that you have a mental illness. But mental health comes from situations and things that's around you. So because you have the diagnosis, because you are labeled as paranoid schizophrenia, and you are coping with it, and you're able to give somebody else knowledge, you're really able to give them the knowledge about the disease. A lot of people can't really give that to people because they're not walking in it.
They don't walk the walk. I like that song. That's why I like that song. Walk it high, talking. Walk it high, talking. Walk it high, talking. Talk it high, walk it out.
Yeah, that's you gotta learn how to separate the messenger and the message. Right. You know what I mean? So it's not just about, with all due respect, it's not just about you, it's your message.
Yes.
And a lot of people, they can't separate the two. Kind of like what you said, Doctor, about Cat Williams and Monique. Mm-hmm. Like some people, they look at them like a celebrity, but it's not really their celebrity status. It's the message. It's what they were saying and what they were doing.
So does that make me ghetto? Because I like walk it high, talk it. Walk it high, talk it. Anyway, I'm going to say a poem for us here today. Is that okay with you, Ashley? Is that okay? Analyze this, because so many times we get caught up in being judged, and all of us here have made some choices in our life where we have been judged for those choices that we made. And I wrote this poem called Analyze This. Okay? Because we are no judge. We're supposed to uplift and encourage everyone. And this can go, these are just the topics that I'm talking about because they were dear to me, and these are things that I see. But it's talking about everything where we see a negative action, we can move in with a positive reaction. There's 3 topics that I'm talking about. But anyway, you'll hear. Okay, let me go. Analyze this while we try to analyze that. Looking down on those who still sell drugs to get high on drugs like crack. See, I'm not telling you what I heard. I'm telling you what I know. I was chose to walk path of destruction, so those who are lost we can show. We all need to lift each other up. You never know how a positive word might encourage those who are corrupt. Never think you too good and be afraid to give a helping hand. Let's come together and help the brother man. Anyone can change. Look at me. If I can, you can too. We should all walk in love. We all have an image from heaven above. Each day we wake up, we are blessed. World, let's come together and do our very best This is a blessed day that the Lord has made. The path of blessings has already been laid. We make a lot of bad choices. Yeah, we might regret it, but it's time to move on. We can't change the past. Learn from it and forget it. Walk in love and repent. One day you might wish you had. One step at a time, so it's kind of Jacob's ladder. So world, let's put down the guns, the gossip, the drugs, the bottles, the smokes in your fists. Not much time left, our choice. Let's come together. So analyze this. And that's what was on my mind.
Wow. That was nice.
Oh,
That was nice.
Your rocks is in there.
what rocks? Oh, I'll be like,
We need to do rocks.
what rocks? We talking about drugs, you talking about rocks.
No, I'm talking about your spiritual rocks.
Let me go get my rocks.
That was a good time for our song break. For anybody who hasn't heard it, this is off J.
We gotta
Cole's
take
new
a
album.
small song break, then we're gonna come back and then we're gonna wrap it
To what we're
up.
talking to right now.
And they bring business. Fuck all y'all niggas. Y'all niggas big
This?
Hey, what are you doing? This is not it. Look,
Okay, let's put on the two.
go to
dedicated. You tell my voice up.
yeah, because that's the right.
This
We're
one.
not really dedicated.
This.
Who played?
And they bring business.
All right,
Fuck
step
all
forward.
y'all
What
niggas.
is
Y'all
Yeah, you know,
That is not
Absolutely
the right
not.
song. Look, go to J.
What
Cole
time is it?
Vivo.
It is
It's-
7:46.
Okay. Oh, we're going over.
This cookie jar shape is like the perfect marriage of Oreo cookies and real ice cream. Now that's a very I was just gonna say. Have it now. Should I get a speech? No.
How not in there? Meet my new co-host, Savon, along with Savon.
Hold on.
Where you find these?
I thought this was supposed to be my personal assistant.
I said she will be a good assistant. She needs stuff to do.
Okay.
We're gonna give it to her. Well, I brought her here to see about co-host that we're going to. She's gonna be able to help you with stuff. She's gonna tell you about what she's doing now. Right?
You ready to go?
Okay.
Get back into it.
Let's go ahead and
Here.
get back to it.
Join us on YouTube. Do what you gotta do. Listen to this conversation. Give us a call in. 443-882-0417. Thank you.
All right, we're back
And
with more.
Spoken sounds of soul.
Yeah. Spoken, say it. Come on.
Spoken sounds of soul.
Ashley, let me hear you say that.
Spoken sounds of soul.
All right. Okay, Zavon, say it.
Spoken
Come on, let me.
sounds of soul.
That good radio. Everybody has
Spoken sounds of soul.
Ooh,
I love that. That's all like soul train.
Yeah. I mean, you want to get insulted. All we need is some music. Okay, so we're back with Ashley. Ashley, this was an amazing show, very informative. It's just a blessing to hear your story. and we didn't have enough time to get into, you know, everything. So you could take people, but what you did share, it was an amazing story, amazing testimony. And I'm just so proud of you and just knowing you and the things. And you didn't tell everybody what you do. You know, you went back to college and did all this stuff. You got your degrees and all this stuff, and you counsel and you do this. You work with NAMI. You don't only do that. You actually get a paycheck from NAMI. She goes out and teaches classes on how to be a presenter, which she was my trainer. She's a presenter.
When's the next classes?
I'm not sure. She'll be coming from the fall.
Yeah.
So August.
I'll be there.
And they fed us and they treated us really, really nice. And that way, with NAMI, you're able to go out and just tell your story. And I tell my story, but through my drug addiction, my drug abuse, and that, you know, side of it, which was my mental illness and how I had the nervous breakdowns and all that stuff. But she does a lot. She also is a ghostwriter. She helps people to write their books. She does a lot. And she just didn't share all of that. That's how I was like,
so how long have you been ghostwriting?
No, I don't ghostwrite. I just write about my lived experience with recovery, mental health, and things like
No, she helps other people write their book.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
I have these workshops I'm doing, monthly workshops where it's through Embracing My Mind Enterprise, EMM Enterprise. And I'm guiding others on how to share their lived experience, whatever that may look like. It is not just in the recovery field, but it's just whatever they've overcome, nonfiction. And I'm doing these workshops, sharing some tips on how to self-publish, you know, the different parts of the front matter, back matter of the book, how to put the book together and self-publish. And that's what I've been doing as well.
Okay, cool. And you know, there's some things that, you know, through BPU, you know, you can definitely collab with, because, you know, I have a certification PhD. And so we're actually getting ready to get in certifying in the arts as well as life coaching, business coaching, and all of those things. We're going to, you know, even if we have other presenters like yourself, you know, I can put that stamp on that certification and make it legal.
I'm also a certified peer specialist. And what that means is I'm like a peer counselor, lived experience mentor, or, you know, peer counselor. CPS that's part of the recovery movement. We're growing strong. We're sharing lived experience. We're sharing with other people how we survive and how we manage our condition, and how we cope with it. And I want to give a big shout out to the network, the Georgia Adaptive Network, the Respect Institute, NAMI Georgia, for supporting me in my recovery, things of that nature.
Wow.
And also my book. My book is a collection of blog entries from overcoming schizophrenia, my blog.
Where can you get that book at?
My book is available on Amazon. It's called What's My Mind? Overcoming Schizophrenia. And it's a collection of blog entries about my lived experience of schizophrenia. And it's actually according to a NAMI program that I teach others on how to articulate their story and lived experience. So it's broken down into a short read, 5 themes, 5 topics, dark days, acceptance, treatment, and so forth and so forth. But again, my book, What's My Mind? I'm working on another book, What's My Mind, you know, volume 2. And I'm trying to get that off the ground as soon as possible. I'm working hard on that. But yeah, this first one is about, it's about schizophrenia. My next book is going to be What's My Mind? Coping Takes Work. And so I'm going to dig a little deeper into what it's like being a single parent with mental illness. What is it like managing my self-care needs and stuff like that. And depression as well. That's what I'm going through now. I'm going through in and out with depression sometimes. And so I wanted to cover all bases, not just schizophrenia. I'm managing my schizophrenia, but this is what I'm going through now.
And it's so crazy because, again, when I said I see something, that these are the reasons why, and a lot, because I do destroy my boxes quite often. You know, I had to learn that over time. First, I thought, okay, you destroy your boxes, over with. But life still happens. Things still happen. So you have to continuously get rid of the things that are negative in your life, in your mind, in your emotions, in your spirit, in order for you to keep on keeping on. And so maybe that's what I was reading when you said you're going through it now with the depression and stuff like that. When people come around, you know, there's certain things. And so whatever is causing depression, that's what has to be destroyed in your box.
I have some questions. I know I'm going live on Facebook. Hey, everybody on Facebook. I love y'all. I thank you. Some people were talking about ghostwriting, what I'm doing with the workshops. I'm not ghostwriting. I'm guiding people on how to self-publish their book. My workshops, I did a series. I did one every month since February. And you can check me out on my Facebook page or on my blog. You can message me personally through my email, and I'll show you with you more details about that. I'm about to have another workshop in May, hopefully May 19th. But check back on my Facebook page, check back on my blog, and I'll tell you more details there.
Okay, cool.
Well, the lady asked you to help her write her book. And she said she didn't know anything about writing. So with that, because it was that you were doing the workshops.
Yes.
So I took that as ghostwriting.
Yeah, I was ghostwriting for 12 years, so I know that's why we got somebody else.
Yes.
Because a lot of people have been asking me lately, can you write? And I'm like, I can't write for anybody else right now because I'm stickler. I'm a stickler right now on doing things for myself, because if you can make other people multimillionaires through your writings, then you can make your own self that. You know, but back then we were doing everything that we can to get money to take care of our family, single kid, you know, all of that kind of stuff. So you don't realize that thing, but it's almost like selling your soul. When you put out a story and somebody grab it, and there's never a time that you can say anything about the story that you wrote, and then you see them prospering and making all this money off of it. Then you come to the conclusion after so many times, no more of that. I have to do things for myself. So there's a lot of people that have been reaching out to me about ghostwriting, but I'm like, no, but I can't refer them to someone. That's why my antlers, when she said you're a ghostwriter, because I was going to say I could refer you to some people.
Yeah, and I'm going to support people. I mean, I do these free book writing workshops to guide people on what they can do with their own story just to bring it out of them.
Yeah, ghostwriting is different from that. Ghostwriting means that you're actually writing a story and nobody knows that it's you writing that story. They think it's the person that purchased the story, depending on how, you know, it's like you do work for hires most of the time when you ghostwriting, you don't get any credit.
I'm more along lines of just encouraging, inspiring them.
Yeah, like a workshop
stay
type.
Focused, a book writing coach. Stuff like that.
And we're going to be having script writing workshops here too. So, you know, there's a lot of things that you can collab with. You know, that's one of the things that's very, very important. Teaching our people how to cope with things in positive ways. And writing is one of those things. You know, when I was in jail, I wrote so much stuff. Like I wrote programs that they still use in the prison right now, you know, but I also was writing my healing. Every day, I always had a positive affirmation about me. Instead of the negative things that will always come, I always had a positive affirmation about me. Like T Love is doing with us with these rocks. When we see what this rock is, then what we do is we actually say something about the word that's on that rock that relates to us coming from the inside.
Yes.
Okay, but before we get into
okay.
We're gonna let us. Okay. Yeah.
You do your thing, but I got one more thing, kind of just before we close out.
Okay. Tell them about. Okay, we have a book, another book coming out, and how they can find you in case somebody needs coaching on writing a book, or they want to get help in seeking your resources or the resources that are available for them. So let them know how they can get in touch with you and some of the programs that are available, if anything that they hear that they.
Yes. Number one, my blog, where it all started from, Overcoming Schizophrenia. They can Google Overcoming Schizophrenia. Ashley Smith, my blog will pop up. It's not just about schizophrenia. It's about being the example of our lived experience with the survivor, whatever we come to the table with. And I try to keep it. I try to keep it present. I try to keep it real. This is what I'm going through now, and I still maintain my blog. It's going on. It's 10 years this year. Oh my God, I'm blogging 10 years. Hey, but Overcoming Schizophrenia, blogging. I have my Facebook page, EMM Enterprise. I'm building that website up to share with others more about my book coaching abilities and things of that nature. I'm doing book writing workshops in group style, free, monthly, once a month. I have one more coming up in this month, the last one, and I'm going to start the series again later on. But check me out online on Overcoming Schizophrenia.
Where are you from?
I'm from the Bay Area, from San Francisco, but I was raised here in Atlanta. Atlanta's my home. I'm an adopted piece now. I need to stop saying California because I'm in Atlanta now.
Yeah, but you don't sound like Atlanta, and that's why I asked you where you was from.
Something about moving here doesn't necessarily put the accent on you. Because I've definitely been here like since my childhood, but a lot of people don't say like that. I sound like I'm from here. My family's from Pittsburgh, so I guess like at home you learn, I guess, more of the northern dialect. I just speak properly most times. unless I'm just feeling like.
Well, I can
I'm
speak
kicking it with
Glover
the
too,
homies.
if you really want me to. I like to be country sometimes. You gotta be a chameleon, you know what I'm saying? But Ashley, yeah, thank you so very much. Okay, tell them about NAMI. We didn't get into
Yes, NAMI, the National Anthem to Illness. It's a great organization. Hey, look it up in your state, look it up in your local community. NAMI is strong. NAMI is going everywhere. We have support groups that are available to everyone. We have it for the family members, the caregivers, individuals with a diagnosis like myself. I've been a member of NAMI for a little while, since 2009. I love NAMI. It's done wonders in my recovery. The Respect Institute, sharing your story, how to articulate your lived experience through the Georgia Mental Health Consumer Network is huge. It's great in Georgia. I hope it expands beyond and much further, because I mean, it's just all self-empowerment. It's all about empowering one another through our lived experience, through our stories. My book, What's on Mine, Overcoming Schizophrenia, it's available on Amazon. I'm coming out with another book, What's on Mine, Coping Takes Work. I'm still working on it. I don't want to say when I'm going to be done with it, because I'm still writing the pages, but I really wanted to know everyone to know about how I've survived, how I've managed these last 2 years. And this nitty gritty, I have my 6-year-old son, Big Boy. I love him so much. I'm so thankful and blessed that I have Big Boy that I can still maintain. But I want to thank you, T Love, so much for being on your show. I want to thank everybody else.
Yes.
Thank everyone on Facebook, Overcoming Schizophrenia fans, and What's on Mine fans. I love you all so much. Thank
We
you.
love you too, Ashley.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
And I just got my last thing. I kind of just been sitting on this because I've been real sort of pensive, and because I don't know. I guess as far as mental health, it's not something that I'm dealing with, but it's something that I've been, I guess, taking lightly, sort of. It's one of those things that you kind of don't want to accept because you don't want to make it as real as it might be. But I have someone who, I'm going to make him watch this later, who's very close to me. One of the most important people in my life. And according to him, somehow I got 3 years. 3 years. He was putting it on a timeline till he's calling it quits, and I'm like, it's one of those things where you're just like, nah, bro, you can't just like. It's weird to put a timeline on it too. Like, if you're gonna be suicidal, it's like you're just gonna go day by day, just la-di-da, and then like when that time comes, you're like, all right, I'm ready to go, and then just. So I'm like, no, I mean, and I know he's depressed, but I'm not sure why. Because in a similar way, like, you know, both his parents have always been around. You know, it seems like he has like a good support system. But I can see like there are some elements of like toxicity, but it's like it's become circular now, you know, to the point where like, because he literally told me like he wants everybody around him to hate him so that it's easier for him, or it's easier, I guess, on both ends, when he offs himself, you know, he was all like,
So this is serious.
Yeah, and so like, and to a degree, because my mom had done some time in a mental health institution, so she's very opposed to, you know, seeking like the meds. Because I mean, when she did it was roughly 25 years ago, you know, at this point. And I guess the field was different, the stigma was different, the treatments were different, and. You know, so I understand like depression and suicidal tendencies, I guess, does run in the family. I don't know, it missed me, but and I just don't know what's up with this guy. He's like,
yeah, you mentioned that you don't know why he's depressed. Sometimes it's just a chemical imbalance as it is, and so I think that suicidal tendencies and ideas is just a byproduct of the symptom of that imbalance. It's suffering internally and just I mean, I'm going back to my experience. I was not suicidal, but had I not received treatment, I did. I could be another suicide risk or something along those lines. And
So what are some of the
so from the outside, right? Being, you know, because I don't have the problem, but I want to help him with the problem. And right now, I've kind of just been trying to not necessarily handle him with the kitty gloves, but like now, like love him up extra. You know?
Yes.
And then I try to like, you know, discourage, because for a while he was kind of subjected to like that negative stigmatizing, because to be honest, the boy can be a jerk. And it's like, but why? Like, why are you doing this? And it's almost got to a point where now he perpetualizes it within himself.
How old is he?
Because he's 16 going on 17.
Bring him to
And
me.
I don't, because I swear I remember
I think
a time
this
he
is
has
something
not
we ain't
always
got
been-
enough time to
Yeah.
talk about that really needs to be addressed. Savon, seriously.
Yeah, and I'm
Savon.
like, I need to see about this kid. But it's
Yeah.
like,
Well, we're gonna talk to you after the show.
yeah,
and
we'll
then-
get more into it.
Yeah, into to that, because that raises some serious
Yeah,
flags.
bring him to me.
Yeah, especially something that's over 3 years. Now, when people speak that, you have
You
to take
listen,
that
take it
Serious, very serious.
Yeah, that's something serious that bothers my spirit. So whoever that is, we're gonna lift them up in prayer and continue to encourage, and you find out everything that you can do to get him the help that he needs, so we can turn the negative into a positive. Okay, we're gonna uproot that weed. Yes. All right, let's turn over. Thank you so much, Ashley. We love you. Thank you so much, Zavon. Zavon's gonna be my new co-host, along with Zavon. Shaban. Did I say Zavon? Did I? Shaban. And TJ. With the Dr. A. Ow! All right, thank you so much, Ashley. Now, what we're going to do here, we're going to give a word of wisdom. This is Word of Wisdom Wednesdays. So we're going to flip over rocks. Everybody have a rock. And we got to give a quick word of encouragement with what our rock says. Okay? We're going to start with our special guest today.
Love.
Ooh,
I love this one. Love. First thing that comes to mind was T-Love. Love yourself. If you're going through some hard times, meditate, think on this word love, embrace yourself, cover yourself in it, envision yourself being loved, envision yourself loving yourself, and then go from there. Let love take over.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
I got peace. Right now my peace is disturbed because I got kids talking this wildness. But I think I've probably said this before. You know, peace comes from, or at least my peace comes from acceptance, right, and knowledge, and moving past the past, right? Always moving forward, because once the past is done, it's done. You got to be solution oriented. You got to be forward thinking, forward moving. A big thing I was saying to the kid, I was like, you know, for whatever it is that you feel about yourself, for whatever reason you don't like yourself, that's not who you are, right? Who you've been and who you're going to be, and to be two totally different people, you know? Don't let nobody put you down talking about something. Well, you know how he is. It's like, no, we know how he's been, but who he is and who he's going to be can be totally different. If you could tell me today that you were going to make a change in yourself, I would start treating you as if that change was already made. I would start treating you as if that change was already made. Whatever it is you say you want to be, you want to do, I would encourage you in that from day one, as if we already there. I think a lot of, you know, peace is hard to come by these days for some reason. In 2018, there's a lot of, I mean, every day you turn on the news, and I deal with it every day I walk into work. There's this huge TV right there in the lobby, and I just got to see either the president's face or, you know, just a headline. It's just like, why? You know, something bonkers. You know, just disturbing your peace. But I think you gotta look inwards.
Yeah.
For your peace, right? And moving through your day by day, look into the future, not focusing on the past, not focusing on that which is outside of your present scope. So that's my word of wisdom today. Seek peace within, leave the past in the past, and move forward in progress.
Yes, sir.
It is.
My word is strength. And I would say, get in tune with self so that you understand that when you have a weakness, the inner spirit within you can be your strength. which is the Most High. And I also would say with strength is that you're only as strong as you feel. Don't give up.
Okay. Mine is believe. And the first thing that comes to mind is my higher power. Just have faith. You know, you have to walk by faith, not by sight. And then believe, just believe in yourself that you can overcome the obstacles in life. And I like your word. I like your word, strength. And what I always say is my struggles make me stronger. So I always say struggle, strength, you know? So everything that I've been through, it made me the person that I am. So struggle, strength.
Struggle, strength.
I like that. Ooh, struggle, strength. I'm gonna write a poem about that.
My book about my life is called Faith in the Struggle. Oh, and I'm almost finished writing it.
All right. All these powerhouse. I got some tears. I'm trying to come out my eye. Ooh. Okay, courage. Ooh, yes. Courage. Okay. Courage is being able to overcome and deal with whatever life throws at you. Have the courage to face it head on and know that you can go around it, you can walk over it, you can go through it. Okay? From the storm, you know, the hills, the mountain. Ain't no mountain high enough. Ain't no river wide enough. Keep me from getting to you. I ain't never gonna laugh or cry. You know, I ain't courage. Okay. Ain't nothing can keep me from it. I have the courage to achieve and do the things that I want to do, and you have it too. So believe in yourself as we believe in each other, so we can rise up.
And teamwork makes the dream work, and love makes the difference. So let's keep in mind that we have to help one another to overcome all of our situations in life.
And we're going to plant those seeds, uproot those weeds, be contagious, and what?
Spread the love.
Spread the love. We're going to spread the love. Okay, like y'all around here spreading the flu, we're going to spread some love. All right? Much love. We out. It's like you're looking through a telescope. You see flaming on me. Rolling down in down. Not the person they see. Have you had the things you've been through? Cause they built your love so. Great job, guys. Great job. Thank you. Thank you, Ashley. Much love. So while we put the rock somewhere else, no, that green cup, it did crack. Oh, now I got to remember it cracked one, and I was like, oh, we need to replace it. Oh no, you wasn't here. Oh, then we so is it okay to leave? Yeah. Oh, because you never know you can go. So I just had Marley take it on there, so that I will cut myself on the glass when you do your show. Thank you guys so much.